Russia seeks African mercenaries to bolster its forces in Ukraine.
Here's a summary of the article.
In a bid to bolster its dwindling forces in Ukraine, Russia appears to be turning to unconventional means. Reports indicate recruitment efforts underway in the Kursk region, aiming to fill the ranks of a newly formed African corps with 50 to 100 soldiers and officers. This development suggests a potential shift in strategy, replacing Wagner PMC mercenaries with African recruits for deployment to the war zone, National Resistance Center of Ukraine reports. Burkina Faso emerges as the target zone for this unconventional recruitment drive, raising concerns about the potential for further destabilization in the region. The primary objective, it seems, is to establish training grounds for local fighters and facilitate the influx of fresh mercenary waves to sustain the war in Ukraine. Over 350,000 liquidated Russian soldiers stand as a stark reminder of the consequences of this war. The pursuit of easy gains through mercenary recruitment ultimately proves illusory, as the price for perpetuating violence continues to rise.
This post received a score of 3,100, with an upvote ratio of 95%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
These Russia hiring mercenary stories have been around since the war started. They never pan out. You have to hire, train, fly into a war zone. There's a total language barrier. No interest in what the war is about. Cold and topography totally different from where the Mercenaries are from. The death rate is going to be near 100% and word gets back to whatever country. And that's the end of recruiting in whatever place.
I remember when Assad was supposed to be sending contingents of Syrian forces to repay Russia for their help keeping him in power. Don't think that ever panned out.
As far as I know, the only proven mercs were the guys trafficked from Cuba. Like we had video of them in Russia. Every other one doesn't seem to have any follow-through.
The Nepalese government made an appeal a few months ago to try to convince their own nationals to not join the war after the first Nepalese casualties were suffered and the bodies weren't returned.
Men who would otherwise have chosen a peaceful path had it been available to them.
Sadly, joining the army was a way out of poverty for many Nepalese youth, more specifically joining India's Gurkha units. But India changed how it worked a year or so ago and left many out of a job.
Though the Gurkhas left such an impression in many countries that they'll often hire them as security guards. They're a half step, if that, above a mall cop, but they look vaguely like Gurkhas, so they'll be standing guard outside of a condo in Malaysia.
If we know anything about African military history, it's that their Arctic units are lethal.
The stealth and lethality of Africa's Arctic armies is so incredible that none have lived to bear witness to them.
Their first mistake was looking for bear witnesses in Africa.
One of the biggest problems with hiring African mercenaries to fight in Ukraine is the winter cold. I specifically asked them how they coped with our winters and they all said they found it extremely cold, having to wrap up really well, and even then they were chilled to the bone. Now, take those same guys and put them lying in a trench for weeks, in a Ukrainian winter that is much, much colder, and expect them to function as an effective fighting force. I would say they would struggle to fight, with many easily succumbing to cold-related illnesses, hypothermia and frostbite.
Yeah, served with plenty in the army, and winter is an emotional time for our Commonwealth buddies. So many non-freezing cold injuries, and that's with being trained to operate in the UK weather. Was easier to go to the heat from here.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.